Hi guys, and welcome to the continuation of my Puppetmaster review series. It's been a while, so some time ago I reviewed the first 6 of these back to back, and you'll find those reviews in my Puppetmaster playlist. There will be spoilers today, by the way. But after number 6 I stopped. I went on a very long hiatus, and the reason for that is mainly because this series is very expensive to watch in the UK. You can't rent these films at all, anywhere. You have to subscribe to some weirdly obscure streaming service, and at the time that I was considering moving on with number 7, I didn't want to sign myself up to another subscription service. I already had several on the go at the time. You can buy these films online, but when it got to trying to find number 7, the only copy I could find was a second-hand copy for about £20, and considering I'm not that into this series, it's just too much for me. I just didn't want to pay that, so I decided to leave it at 6 and move on. But here we are 2 years later, coming back to it, and the reason I am now is because I just randomly stumbled across another copy of the film that's only £13, so I thought to myself, I'll go for it at £13, why not? So basically, this review series stopped for 2 years because of £7, if you think about it, the difference between 13 and 20, but whatever. So this one was directed by David Decoteau. You might remember him from such films as Sorority Babes in the Slimeball Bowlerama and 90210 Shark Attack. I'm not joking. I won't list off a bunch of cast names for this because you won't have heard of most of them, although to be fair on these actors and actresses, most of the leads here do have wiki pages. That's not always the case in low-budget films like this. We do have Guy Rolfe returning, though. Guy Rolfe plays the long-running character of Toulon, and it's been Guy Rolfe playing him since number 3, I think. He's sort of like the Donald Pleasance of this franchise. You know, you can sort of rely on him to keep popping up, at least for a while, because this, I believe, is his last one. This is his swan song, but we've still got like quite a lot of Puppetmaster films to go after this. But it's kind of cool to see Guy Rolfe one more time, albeit this is not a great film for him to go out on. So the story. This is a prequel to the prequel. We already had Puppetmaster 3, which took place during World War II. This one is a prequel to that, and it takes place at the beginning of the 20th century, so we get to see how Toulon got his puppets in the first place, which is what I thought we would get from number 3, but I guess we didn't. So this time around, Toulon is a young man. He's running a really small theatre, and believe me, I'm not exaggerating when I use that word. Toulon's theatre only has about 10 seats. It's smaller than my living room right here, and believe me, I'm not going to turn the camera around, but this is not a big room. As established in Puppet Masters 4 and 5, there's an evil god in this universe called Sutek or Satek, and in this one he sends 3 of his minions to go and kill anybody who has possession of the magic beans or whatever it is that can bring puppets alive. So Toulon has got trouble on his hands dealing with these 3 minions who have magic powers. They can basically reach out and will people to death somehow. At the same time, Toulon is also beginning a romance here with some hottie from just down the street, and that's basically the plot. And if I sound decidedly unsure and also very unenthusiastic about all this, it's because this story is absolutely as dull as dishwater. This is easily the worst Puppetmaster film up until this point. It's not even close. And the budget seems to have really gone down since the previous film, which in and of itself was already a come down from like the old Puppetmaster films that took place at the Boyega Hotel. Puppetmaster 6 came out in 98 and this one came out in 99, so in the space of 12 months to go from that to this, it's quite a come down. I mean, the films at this point, number 7, really cheap looking, like really, really low budget. There's only 2 scenes in this where you actually see puppets attack anyone, and that's the whole point of Puppetmaster, you know, to see these puppets in action and what they're going to get up to, and, you know, seeing their different personalities in play and what kills are going to happen and stuff. But there's very little of that in this movie. You've got to wait more than an hour for the first time that a puppet does anything in this. And even when things do happen, it's not that exciting. Like both of the attack scenes that happen, it's basically just puppets jumping onto Sutek's minions, and one of them gets repeatedly stabbed in the leg, and then the second scene where there's an attack in the finale, it's not that exciting what happens then either. There's literally not one good kill in this movie, and there's not even one kill of a human being, because both of the kills that I remember are of Sutek's minions. There are some human characters who die, but not at the hands of the puppets, if you see what I mean. But by God, it's a cheap-looking film, and the romance in it between Toulon and the girl whose name I forget is really poorly handled. Like, they've just got no chemistry at all, these characters. The biggest problem with the romance is that the guy who plays Toulon, he's putting on a foreign accent. I think he's doing a French accent, I'm not even sure. But he's putting all of his energy into doing this accent, and he's got nothing left for the actual performance. He can't do both at the same time, seemingly. So his performance throughout all of this is really stunted. The love interest is all right. I kind of liked her as an actress and as a character, but these two together, it's just really awkward watching them. It reminded me of Ghostbusters 2. If you've seen that film, there's a character in that who he's like a slimy art guy, an artist of some description, and he tries to woo Dana, played by Sigourney Weaver, but it's just kind of creepy and awkward, and you just know that Dana's got no interest in that guy. This relationship in Retro Puppetmaster reminded me of that, actually. It's just really, it's cringy. It's just awkward to watch. It reminded me also of my 7th birthday party. So when I was 7, I had a magician for my birthday party. This was back in 1987, before Puppetmaster 1 had even come out. And during the magician's performance, he brought me out onto the stage, as it was, and I thought to myself, oh, this is going to be really cool. But it wasn't, because the magician then brought this girl up onto the stage, and just for laughs, he got the girl to give me a birthday kiss, which I thought was absolutely revolting at 7 years old. He wouldn't get away with that nowadays, I guess. People would complain, but back in 87, I guess they didn't mind if magicians did that. But me and this girl stood in front of all these other kids. Come to think of it, I don't even know where this girl came from. I could have sworn I only invited boys, but whatever. The kiss that we had, it was just really awkward. It was on the cheek but close to the lips, and we didn't really want to look at each other. And then after it was done and we were allowed to walk off, we just kind of walked in separate directions, and it was all just kind of ooh, you know. And it says it all about the romance in Retro Puppetmaster, that I was reminded of that experience, which I've probably not given a minute's thought to in about 3 decades. We don't get the classic Puppetmaster theme tune in this, which is a real shame. Neither do we get to see Satek himself, which is also a shame, because I kind of remember liking him. Maybe. His 3 minions, they look like 3 Agent Smiths with hats on. Really bizarre, although I do like their first scene at least. So they've got some interesting dialogue in an alleyway. So the middle guy is speaking, and the other 2 either side of him just repeat what he says, but it did sort of make me chuckle a little bit. But the more the film goes on, the more fed up I got with this trio. That they're just really cheesy, and they like to fire like sorcery bolts out of their hands. There's more than one character in this film who fires sorcery bolts. What's the obsession with that in this? This is a Puppetmaster film, and yet at times it feels like I'm watching like He-Man or the Beastmaster or something. It's just strange, really strange. Let's talk a little bit about the final girl, who is actually very good, but she's got nothing to work with acting alongside the Toulon guy. But this girl's actions throughout the film are extremely odd, to say the least. So firstly, she escapes her father's house to go out into the city because she really wants to get out for the night. But instead of go to a bar or do something normal, she decides to go to this really obscure puppet show down some back alley. I've got doubts as to whether a hot young woman would take this course of action. You know, I don't go to theatre shows, especially tiny puppet shows. I'm certain if I did, I wouldn't suddenly bump into some really hot young single woman there, but tell me I'm wrong, you know. But this woman, she watches this show, which is utter shit, but she seems to enjoy it. And then she goes backstage and seeks out Toulon like she's some groupie sneaking into the back at a Bon Jovi concert or something. And the strange thing is, she's still obsessed with Toulon, even after she's got to hear him speak and find out how boring he is. Then she goes away and comes back in the middle of the night to see Toulon, dressed like she's off to Royal Ascot or something. Like, who is in the costume department of this film, and what is going on with how this woman has been dressed? She just needs a peacock feather on top of her head or something. She'd be ready for the horse racing. And then, I can't remember if the two of them meet up again in any more scenes, but later on, we cut to this woman in her bedroom writing a letter to Toulon like he's her long-lost love or something. She's like, "Oh, Andre, I'm sure that I will find a way to sneak past my father and we can be together again for eternity." They've only met like twice, and their romance was just awful during those very, very few scenes. And yet now they're like Romeo and Juliet. It's like a deep tragedy that they can't be together or something. And I can't work out whether this is just a really bad script or whether it's a deliberate kind of piss take somehow. The whole thing just feels really kind of like they're going for some kind of Tim Burton exaggerated fantasy or something. It's just unfathomable, this film. But one thing I'm definitely sure about is the fact that it's really, really bad. And by the finale, which is on a train, which they didn't have the budget for, so they've had to film it at weird angles to give off the impression that a still room is somehow moving. By the time we got to that, I was literally nodding off. I was kind of doing that thing where you go, because it was getting on a bit. It was getting towards midnight, and I was just ready for the end. And I vaguely remember this train bit that finished things off. Somebody falls out the window of the train. I'm pretty sure it wasn't Toulon, but I'm honestly not sure. Time to show you the version of the film that I've got. Here is my DVD of Retro Puppetmaster. This thing right here is why my Sunday night last week was so wretched. Cost me £13 this. I could have had like 4 cappuccinos at Starbucks for the same money. Even the puppets in this don't look the way they should. So because this is an origin story, the idea is that the puppets are prototypes of what they would eventually become. So as you can see, they've not been painted properly yet. They just don't look the same as what they're meant to. So yet another aspect of this film which is not right, you know what I mean? So I absolutely cannot recommend this. And if I had any common sense, I would finally end this Puppetmaster review series right here for good. But because I'm stupid and I've got a kind of weird OCD when it comes to movies, I will probably end up watching the 8th one, whether it's a week from now or a year from now when I've recovered from this experience. Although right now, I'd rather be hit by a bus than watch one more film. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. But yeah, this wasn't a good one. Let's get to the bag of terror anyway and see what the score is. 1 bloody axe out of 5. So that's half an axe for the girl actress in this, who should be in better movies than this. And I hope that she went on to be in better movies than this without checking. And the other half an axe is to honour Mr. Guy Rolfe, who put in a spirited effort across 4 or 5 Puppetmaster films. What a shame for him that he wasn't in a better franchise. But yeah, 1 out of 5. I'm pretty sure I gave all the other Puppetmaster films better scores than this without going back and checking. Retro Puppetmaster, oh dearie me. But until next time, cheerio, bye-bye.